This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome in, Pierre Noujaim, on location today, away from his home office, but looking fantastic, resplendent, well rested.
Yes. I'm feeling very well rested indeed. The sun is out. It's going to touch 50 degrees here in Minnesota in December, which is unprecedented. So a lot to be grateful for here this morning, except for the fact that I am not at my home.
Yeah. Well, look, Pierre, I'll just start right out. You're here on show number 4 after the college football playoff committee blotted out the sun for me. And I've, just been, as I've told the audience day after day, staring into this bleak void of nothingness and, wondering, what is life? Why are things the way that they are? Why, does anything have meaning? And it's been tough. It is, I'll tell you, I don't know if I told this story yet, but when the news came down, Amanda, my wife, was sitting on the couch over here. I was in my chair. She's in the chair. And she's like, after a few minutes, she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not. I don't know when I ever will be. I don't know. I just don't know." And I asked someone the other day, is this what it's like to be a fan of it, of international soccer when you find out all the bad things that went on, with FIFA? I don't think college football is quite that bad, but that's how it felt to me.
Yeah. I'm sure, because it is Thursday today. So I know you've had all week to kind of go through some kind of therapeutic session for yourself. However, I'm glad that we're getting to it right away and we can just get into it, because my God, for just a brief second, when after Florida State beat Louisville, I said, okay. In my mind, I said, okay, well, you can't keep them out now. You can't. You just can't. So who's it going to be? Is it going to be Texas or is it going to be Alabama? And in my mind, I said, well, I still don't believe that the committee has any guts to leave out an SEC team. So on Saturday night, I was thinking, you know what? I think Texas might get screwed.
Yeah.
I think Texas might get screwed because you can't leave Florida State out. And lo and behold, Sunday morning, as I'm driving back from hosting Vikings Game Day Live in the morning, even though the Vikings were on a bye, so we still had to show for some reason. But as I'm driving back and listening to it on the radio, because I was listening to the all the unfolding of the playoff on the radio, and I almost swerved my car off the road. I said, you have got to be kidding me. This is the worst kind of unprecedented judgment that I have ever seen in my life. And it makes me, I get the SEC. Everybody wants to tout the SEC as the best conference, and rightfully so in a lot of areas. But this was just, I have pure disgust and disdain for everybody who runs the SEC and everybody on the college football playoff committee after what we saw last weekend. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace.
Yeah, and here's the thing that's that really is strange, in that we've known this for years. They've always given excuses for why this over this or why this and not this. But this one is like they just quit trying. And then they feed out all these things about, strength of schedule and all this. Okay, yeah, that's always going to be different year to year for everybody. But it broke precedent, which is something that was really shocking. It allows, the 12-team playoff allows them to run and hide. There's no transparency for no reason. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to talk to the people of the committee and find out what's going on, unless there's something they don't want you to know was said.
Right.
There's, I've always felt that, any time that, when Congress has behind closed door meetings about top secret military stuff, I'm glad that we don't know that stuff. Not everybody needs to know. There needs to be some secrecy there. When there are Board of Regents meetings at colleges that they don't let people have access to, that worries me because what are you talking about that people couldn't know this, right? And private schools can do that. I don't think public schools really can unless they get some sort of court order or something because everything's got to be in the record. Or you have to have some kind of shadow meeting. But if you know that everybody's going to be at the Gaylord, Texan, and Grapevine and in this room watching games and doing all this stuff together, what's so secret that one of them can't just, a couple of them come out after the whole thing's over and say, well, here's where I was on this. Hell, you can talk to jurors after trials.
Yeah, after trial. Yeah.
As to why why did you vote not guilty in this murder trial? Well, I felt this didn't meet the burden of proof. Yet in the college football playoff, it's just two guys, a lobbyist, and some poor bastard that they've made the spokesperson that has to repeat the drivel the lobbyist told him to repeat.
Right. Yes. No. And for me, it feels crooked. It feels like it's a crooked mafia deal, so to speak, with the SEC and how everything played out. Because let's be honest, Florida State was left out because Jordan Travis got hurt. That's why they said though. But at the same time too, even if that's the reason, you are punishing the entire team that was also there to earn a 13-0 record in a Power 5 conference. You are now going to punish that team because their quarterback got hurt. Why? Just because you're worried that they're going to be lambs to the slaughter for Michigan? This is the same Alabama team. Congratulations to them for beating Georgia. But were they not the team that were seconds away from a miraculous victory over Auburn, a team that got throttled by New Mexico State? What are we doing? That's the other problem I have with the whole style points issue. I hate that. I don't remember who Florida State beat in 13 weeks. I remember they beat LSU. But you only got to win by one in my book. So this style points crap, I'm so tired of that. You got to blow teams out by 40 every week. That's not how it works. That's not how college football works unless you're playing a cupcake non-conference schedule. So you're going to rob these kids because their quarterback got hurt? The entire team earned what they earned? That's garbage to me.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's insane. And see, here's the deal. Jordan Travis wasn't the real reason. That wasn't the real reason. The real reason is the SEC was going to get left out.
Right.
But
yes.
Jordan Travis
yes.
is the public reason.
Yes.
That's why they say you have to do it, because they can't actually say we're not leaving the SEC out under any circumstances, even one which they should have been left out in. And here's the other thing. The SEC, everybody's had a turn that's missed this thing, right? In the Power 5. Some have had more than one. The SEC, at times, has gotten two in, which means they're due a turn to miss it. Just in the... Yeah. So just in the odds, falling to them, well, there you go. But, the other thing that's troubling is that every time something big happens like this, it kicks off another wave of consolidation and realignment and talk and all that. And look, Florida State was already very publicly talking about the ACC not being enough for them. And that was really, at the time, just about money, right? It was never believed that you could win the ACC with the record that they had and get left out. Because Clemson had done that same thing twice and they got in. Florida State had already done it and they got in 14. So there's tons of precedent for the ACC champion being in the playoff, be it Florida State or Clemson are the two that have been in the playoff. So, that was not really part of it, although I'm sure it was thought as they expand, what happens when they're 10, what happens when an ACC or Big 12 team is 10-2, and so is an SEC or Big 10 team. Like,
Yeah.
what happens when that, like, that's not as big of a leg to stand on, and it's not as a huge of a deal because then you're going to start really splitting hairs. But if we're a few years into an expanded playoff and it's just the SEC and Big Ten and everybody else grabbing for scraps outside of their contractually obligated one, then we still have the same problem.
Yeah, and that's, that brings up a very interesting point, like for next season when the Big Ten does away with divisions. And let's say, for the sake of argument, that you have 12-0 Michigan that's already beaten Ohio State once next year, for the sake of argument. And then, of course, they're still the two best teams in the Big Ten, and they rematch for the Big Ten championship, and Ohio State wins that game. And now you've got two 12-1 teams from the Big Ten. Would it not stand to reason that those two teams probably would get in?
Yeah.
Like, in that situation? Probably. I would imagine so. But
well, and look, Ohio State would be in now, same scenario, just not even rematching, right?
Yeah, right. And I know there's good. I think there's probably going to be more good that comes out of expanding the playoff than bad. But at the same time, too, I know deep down, as you work in media, I work in media, and as people who work in media know, that the College Football Playoff Committee loves the fodder, whether it's positive or negative. Everybody was talking about the Final Four on Sunday morning and how it is. And I'm going to miss that, to be honest with you. I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss the intensity of having only 4 teams. I actually kind of like it. And at the same time, too, like going back to our original point with Florida State, I think two things can be true at the same time. I personally believe that Alabama right now is a better team than Florida State without Jordan Travis. I think that is true. However, that makes it, to me, that is still irrelevant right now, considering the resume that Florida State accomplished that should grant them to get into the Final Four.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just tell you, I'm not going to miss it at all. This was
a little bit. I'm going to miss it a little bit because I think four makes it just that much more intense and that much more heavily invested. If it's 12, you kind of know at least 8 that are going to get in, so there's not as much drama surrounding it. But it's more fair for the players and teams. I get that. So like I said, I'm fine with it in that regard.
Yeah, I just know that I'm not going to be it's going to be hard for me. I'm obligated by my job to watch the college football playoff. I need you to help me through this, Pierre.
Yes.
I need you to help me through this. I'm obligated by my job to do this. And nobody, my bosses aren't telling me I have to do anything. It's not like that. But in being a college football first podcaster, I feel it would be disingenuous of me to not watch the playoff and championship games and then come on the air and talk about them for several days. That would be really, really disingenuous of me. And there are plenty of people in our business who do just that. And you can't watch everything, but the best ones of us are the ones who can take in as much do as much research and take in as much information and don't Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith their way through things and just kind of take little bits and pieces and yell about them.
Right.
But I really, the fan part of me and the, person who craves integrity, I guess, does not want to watch this stupid bullcrap dog and pony show of a playoff because I know, especially if any of the 4 teams look bad, look bad and do it where if they'd played a defense like Florida State, they would look bad. If Michigan really looks, kind of blah, like they've kind of looked, I'm going to be I'm going to get mad. I'm going to get mad about it. And then I'm not going to be able to watch it without being grumpy in my house, which I don't like.
Is there any way that, I could say to you, well, are you watching at this point outside of, being the integrity craver that you are outside of that, would you just be watching at this point to see if Michigan just absolutely smashes Alabama? Because I personally don't think that's going to happen.
No, I like look if you had taken of the 5 teams, like this is just my fan perspective on this, and somebody who's watched. I've watched less Michigan than any of the rest of them because their first 8 games this year were all but pointless. So 9 games, all but pointless to watch. Yes. I watched a little bit here and there just because I was curious, but not like I've watched, probably 8 of the 12 Texas games almost in toto, and other parts of it. I've watched about 6 Washington games fully. I've of course watched every second of Florida State, and I've watched a ton of Alabama because they're always on. Right. And it's like a rerun of Friends. It's just all like they're there, like wherever you can find it, you'll find it, but Shawshank on TNT back in the day, like,
yes,
you missed one showing, just wait 2 hours. Like you're going to see Alabama all the time. So Alabama for me was the team that I think is the worst matchup for a couple of them there because of Milroe and the fact that, like, since they've let him just kind of make it up as he goes, it's become more dangerous. And their defense is good enough to, like, keep them in games, right? It's not a classic, like, bare-knuckle Alabama defense, but it's not. It's a really good defense. Their defense is not as good as Florida State's, and it's not as good as Texas's, but it's still really good, So Alabama's the one that Michigan, it's a terrible matchup for Michigan. It's a terrible matchup for them.
Yes, I agree.
I thought, and Garrett and I talked about this a lot, about when we were getting down to it, Texas, Florida State, and Washington, to me, were the 3 schools that matched up the most evenly with each other. All those games would have been kind of the same, right? Like, whatever matchup you wanted to make, like, those games would have been probably really good, especially, Jordan Travis being healthy, like, notwithstanding, those games would have all matched up really well.
No, because at the time you would have had 3 elite quarterbacks, receiving cores. Like every team had legit receiving cores, defensive playmakers. Yeah, they were perfect matchups for each other that I think you would have been drawing straws trying to pick.
Yeah, like it would have been like that would have been one of those things. And so those are matchups good for each other. I thought they were all bad for Michigan, who hadn't seen anybody like that. And like I think this is why this is bad. Like, all 3 of these teams are not great matchups for Michigan. Like, not that Michigan can't beat them because they're a really well coached team, and they're good. They've got a lot of talent, but there's a speed factor that they just have not seen through their schedule this year.
I think Michigan. I've been, you've heard me talk about this probably the last month. I think Michigan has the best talent of anyone, probably in the country, in the entire country. I think they have the best talent. It's going to be a long day for Michigan in that game. Yeah. I think they're going to have a really tough time. But what I really have a hard time with when it comes to the Final Four and everything like that, and you look at Michigan's schedule. Yeah, they beat Penn State when Penn State was ranked 10th, 11th.
Yeah,
but it's tough because even though Penn State was ranked 10th or 11th, you knew they didn't belong on the field with Michigan.
Yeah.
You knew, like, Michigan to me really only has 1 win. And like, sorry, no disrespect to their win against Penn State, but it really feels like Michigan only has 1 win. So why aren't we talking more about Michigan being potentially left out? I don't know. I know we're going in circles, but
look, again, you could do that, because they're in the Big Ten. Washington's about to be in the Big Ten. Texas is about to be in the SEC. Like, you can't. And so, it is. But I did and look, to go back to the original topic of how I'm going to watch this, they're both going to be good games, I think. I think they should stand to reason. I think Texas and Washington might be one of the most fun semifinal games we've had in a long time.
Intriguing. Very intriguing matchup with those two, yeah.
Yeah, you've got Sark against his ex-team, and, the fact that, you've got, Heisman, like Michael Penix might win the Heisman this week. We'll see. This is one that's maybe a little tougher to peg. Like, I think it's probably
Penix should win it.
I think it's going to come down to Penix and Jaden Daniels.
Yes,
because I think Bo Nix losing twice to Penix will knock him back. And Marvin Harrison's a wide receiver, so they'll give him some he is maybe the best actual player of all these 4, but he's not a quarterback.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
obviously, we've been told, like, we knew quarterback was important. We didn't realize it was keep an entire team out of the playoff in spite of their record important. It's the only thing that matters in all of football.
And wouldn't it be something if Marvin Harrison just won the Heisman Trophy this week? Then as just
yeah,
wouldn't that just be another plot twist to the whole thing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But but I do think these are good matchups. But I'm just gonna have a hard time, like even with two really good football games on that night, like watching and not just F-bombing my way through them.
And why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And who could blame you? Listen. I actually, there was a friend of mine in town who asked me to come speak to his college freshman earlier this week, and it's a sports management class. And we're halfway through the class, and I look around at the students. I said, "Who thinks Florida State got screwed this week?" And all the hands went up. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this is dirty. This is crooked. Everybody knows. And so, yeah, I would love nothing more than to not give the Michigan Alabama game any ounce of my attention or money, by giving them my eyeballs. But, we work in sports broadcasting, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I have to do it, but it is going to feel like eating my vegetables a lot. It's going to feel like that, and this might be a personal sad story, but when I was like a sophomore in high school, I asked a girl to a dance and she said no, and she went with someone else.
Right.
And then like an idiot, I went to that dance. And then the whole time I was just like, freaking guy.
Yeah. It's the stuff sitcoms are made of.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole time I was just like, my friend's like, you having fun? I'm like, no, I'm not having fun. How is this fun? What's fun about this? You tell me what's fun about this.
Could not think of a more perfect analogy, in all honesty.
Yeah. And now I have to do that same thing on TV. Like, oh, it's a good game. Oh, is it a good game? I'm glad for all of you it is.
Dancing with my girl.
Yeah.
Come on.
I asked first. There's etiquette and protocol here that I was told. But apparently that's not the case in how things work in high school. So, yeah.
It's absolutely infuriating. It's nothing short of infuriating.
Yeah. When we come back, Pierre, I want your opinion on what you would do if you were a transfer portal or if you were a college quarterback and the transfer portal was there. What Pierre would do? Like, would you stay loyal and get a nice little fair NIL deal from the hometown team that you went to, or would you, just out of sheer financial obligation, take the money and run to whatever school will have you? This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, Pierre Noujaim, Fox 9, Minneapolis. You know what? 3 times this week I've not introduced the guest properly because I've been in my feelings.
You'll never have to say I'm sorry to me, right?
Yeah.
We are good buddies. You'll never have to say I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. It's just one of those things. I did not introduce you and where you're from, but okay, Pierre, you are a redshirt sophomore quarterback. I'm not going to give you the exact like Kyle McCord stats off an 11-1 season, but let's just say you're off a 9-3 season. You've got a good team that has potential to grow. They're trying to be active in the transfer portal and build around you.
Okay.
But, like you're getting, say, $150,000 a year, right? And you know that now the bidding for quarterbacks is going to get crazy. So there's going to be several $2 million quarterbacks. There's going to be some $1 million guys. Like they're out there. And, you like your coach. You like where you are. You got a girlfriend. She's there. Serious relationship. You might marry this broad. I don't know. But there's potentially $1 million out there for you. You go to your collective and say, what can you do for me? They're like, listen, we can give you $350. You really like it here. Do you chase the $1 million and go in the portal?
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, any question you want.
My main question is how am I viewed by the NFL scouts? Am I a first round pick? What type of quarterback do the NFL scouts, how bad do they want me in the draft?
You are a top 100 pick right now.
Top 100?
Top 100.
Okay.
But your school may be, I'll give you this qualifier. Top 100, your school might not have the best, might have a medium reputation with NFL development.
Okay. And am I at a school that's getting on TV enough?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're in a power conference.
Okay. I would say my initial gut reaction is I'm going to call my girlfriend and said, hey, I can find a lot better looking girls with $1 million than I could for $350,000. So see you later. I'm taking the money and I am out of here.
All right. Well, see, I kind of thought you would answer that way, knowing you the way that I do. But there are a lot of things. I just wonder, sometimes are you forgoing what is really a good situation? And I know it's life-changing money. I'm a married man. I'm in a position right now. I remember, and I still have this feeling about the Live Golf Tour. But I also know that all these guys are married, right? And so when you're married, if the Live Golf Tour called me right now, and I'd be like, listen, I don't really feel good about where your money comes from. And I went back and told my wife, hey, I turned down all this money from the Live Golf Tour. She's like, you did.
Yeah. So I would say this. Yes, I probably would take the money. However, in all seriousness, if I have NFL draft aspirations, I have to look at a place where I have to be the starter. I'm going to be the starter. And that is almost essentially guaranteed to me that I am going to be the starter. Now, if I am guaranteed to be the starter at the school that's offering me in between $350,000 and $500, well, I mean, I would imagine if you're offering me $1 million, you're going to make me the starter, right? If you feel that I'm that type of player, I would imagine I'm the starter. So I'm going to a place where I'm going to be the starter, where I'm going to be able to showcase my skills on national television every single Saturday. So that to me, those are the two most important things: playing time and being showcased. That has to be 1 and 2. The money will be great, and I mean, if the money comes with that, great. But if I have NFL aspirations, I need to be somewhere where I'm playing every single Saturday.
Yeah, and look, there's some that I understand completely, and there's some that you can tell are just for money. Look, Cam Ward is going to make a lot of money, right? He's leaving Washington State. That's a 5-7 team. They're in a 2-team conference for a year. I know he's considering his NFL options, but I haven't heard a lot of NFL people talk about Cam Ward specifically yet. So he's gonna find his way to a new school for probably $1.5 million, you would think, because of how prolific a passer he is. That one I understand. If you are a quarterback who's at, say, or you're you're Brock Vandagriff, who's going to Kentucky from Georgia. Like, look, you were like a top 5 QB in the country when you came out a couple years ago. Carson Beck's there. He won the job in what I do believe was a narrow race, but like he won the job. He's not going anywhere. Like if you really want to play, then you got to go somewhere you can play. So that's why he's going to play for Mark Stoops and Liam Cohen at Kentucky. And then you've got guys like Chandler Rogers from North Texas, who really good quarterback at the G5 level. You have 1 year of eligibility left. Like try to go be in the P5. Like those make sense to me. We talked at length earlier this week about Kyle McCord. That one is the one that I am just straight. Like I need more details on how a dude can go 11-1 and at Ohio State, which has a collective, I'm sure that's fantastic, and is in the portal for either more money or a better fit. And Ohio State, if they pushed him in there, does not have a definite plan B, Right. So if you are going to go in the portal, like if you're Ohio State, you better guarantee that you get somebody that you think is going to be better than that's going to be 12-0. Like that is, right. I mean, it is strange.
Kyle McCord didn't play poorly. I mean, he didn't blow the doors off of any, but at the same time, at no point did I ever watch an Ohio State game thinking, man, if they just had a little more throttle at quarterback, they could be like this. Kyle McCord played well. So that to me, that also raised my eyebrows, Paul. 100% it did.
Yeah. No, I'm very surprised that like it went down the way that it did. I mean, like I am and I'm not, but look, he's an 11-1 quarterback. Like you won with him, and I'm sure it's Ohio State. Things are going to come up roses for them, but they also lost to Michigan the 2 years before with C.J. Stroud. So it wasn't that C.J. Stroud's fantastic. So the quarterback's not the difference in this game against Michigan. Like you can look at it and be like, well, he's not C.J. Stroud. Well, who the F is?
Great question.
He is C.J. Stroud is C.J. Stroud. Like you had a great one. I'm glad you enjoyed it when you did. You've had a lot of other great ones. Sometimes you have a guy who's just really solid and I guess but this is like, I need almost every other quarterback in the portal. I get it. I understand what you're doing. Kyle McCord is the one that until I find out more details will befuddle me nonstop.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And here locally for us, I know not a lot of people down in Texas are watching University of Minnesota football, so I'll just make this quick. Ethan Kaliakmanis was the starter for Minnesota. He entered the transfer portal almost a day after the season ended, which caught me a little bit by surprise because he was supposed to be PJ's guy, and they were supposed to groom him and everything like that. Throughout the entire season, I didn't really see much progress with him as a quarterback. So when he entered the transfer portal, I was like, well, what do you think your market is? Like your market cannot be all that high. So that's why, like I said, that feels like a gutsy move to me. Now, granted, PJ's got his own flaws when it comes to trusting his offensive coordinator, trusting the quarterback. That after the first game against Nebraska, where they threw it like nearly 50 times and only put up 13 points, they went right back to being a run first team. But at the same time, I never saw the progression and the improvement throughout as the season went along. I just saw the same guy week in and week out. So when a guy like him enters the transfer portal, my thought process is, again, who told you to do this? Because I don't really know what your market is. And I don't know where you think you're going from Minnesota. It's not like you're going to fill in over at Ohio State. So where do you think you're going? That's the thought process that I would like to know.
Yeah, I'm very curious about all of it. Like, what, and look, I know that they got the guy from New Hampshire, right?
Yeah.
Max Brosmer, that they did that. That's an interesting thing. Those are the transfer portal guys that intrigue me the most, is not necessarily the P5 to P5 guys, but the guys who are trying to take that step up. Especially FCS to the P5, which is what Max Brosmer's doing. Cameron Ward did that. Like he's kind of trying to do the Cam Ward thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And my first reaction was when the season ended, and, I was talking to some members of the media and people that cover the team here. And I said to them all, I said, there is no way that a team like Minnesota can go into next season without competition at quarterback. You cannot go into next season thinking to yourself, well, maybe this will be year 2 of his progression. So like, you did not see enough in 12 games to think to yourself, there's no reason not to have competition at quarterback because we have to have it. And if people are shy away from if Ethan has decided that he is shying away from the competition and wants to try to get a guaranteed starting spot elsewhere, I guess more power to you. But at the same time, yeah, I'm judging you a little bit because you didn't perform in the first year here and you're running away from competition. So what does that really say about you?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, no,
that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. And look, which means they're going to have to get a second guy.
They are. There's no doubt they are.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. They're going to have to get a second transfer portal quarterback. And yeah, so it's a very strange thing. By the way, on3.com is crystal balling DJ Uiagalelei to Louisville after they got Tyler Shuck.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I straight up believe that yet. So they're not always dead on in this, but they're pretty good. So they're yeah, and like look, DJU, you went to Oregon State, your coach went to Michigan State, like. You're also like in that Cam Ward thing where you're a really good college quarterback. Like Cam Ward's better, but yeah. So. Yeah.
And I know we've been talking about quarterbacks specifically, and I understand there's a new coach in town, but the team that I'm looking dead in the face at right now, thinking is Texas A&M.
Yeah,
it's like with everything that they've gone through with the coaching change and the announcement of some of their big time recruits that are going to be going into the portal. Now you're Texas A&M, and you're not that I don't think Texas A&M is going to struggle per se to get top end talent, but at the same time, it's like. Whoa, Texas A&M suddenly has to. How are they going to supplement the loss of some of these key guys?
And look, that's interesting you bring that up. Walter Nolan is now the top ranked player in the portal because he was the top ranked recruit when they signed him a couple years ago, and he's lived up to that billing in spite of the fact of really abysmal coaching. And I thought he would stay because of Mike Elko, who had a part in recruiting him a few years ago. But look, He's got to strike while the iron's hot, and I'm surprised that anybody can outbid A&M for his services, although we found out that A&M's collective kind of pays out a different way. Evan Stewart in his freshman year wasn't getting anything. I think he is now, and he's not leaving yet, which is interesting, the wide receiver, Evan Stewart.
I think it was him and Bobby Taylor were both talking about that, not getting paid.
Yeah, and that Evan Stewart's, I think he's going to stay. I think he likes it there. He's going to stay with Elko right now, especially with Colin Klein coming in as the offensive coordinator. That's good news for him. It's only going to look great for him in that offense. But yeah, A&M has no shortage of resources, but it is surprising that you lose a guy. Most of the people you look through the transfer portal and most of the people that leave are, they're the fourth cornerback or they're the third wide receiver. They're the seventh offensive lineman. They're just there. And so it's not that big of a deal that you're losing a definite starter. What it does hurt, and I think Alabama's a good example of this, is that if you were really deep and you were counting on this guy to come back and be a depth piece for you, you can't do that anymore. But,
right.
But there are big ones. Like Walter Nolan in the portal is huge. He's going to make a ton of money wherever he goes. He's a top 20 pick. If he was eligible, he's not eligible for the draft. So if he was eligible for the draft, he'd be a top 20 pick right now. So next year he's a top 20 pick, so he's going to strike while the iron's hot. But yeah, there's a lot defensive linemen, offensive linemen, quarterbacks, and then you'll get your occasional Trevor Etienne from Florida's in the portal. He's going to get something. He's going to get, but yeah, but most of these are, let's see what I can do and see if there's a better fit, something that I can up my value with for the next level.
Yeah, and Trevor was actually the name that I was going to bring up next. He's going to be a guy that is going to garner a lot of interest around the country, and that's. I don't know how you feel about it though, Paul. And for Garrett and everybody else on the show, this is just such a weird. It just feels really weird to me to be talking about college football in this sense. And I know I got to get used to it. And I'm okay getting used to it. I don't want to, but there's something about a building of a program and kind of, sticking to your word kind of thing that I guess I'm a little old school in that regard to think. But I know that we're in a new world now and we've got new ways to deal with things. So I'm still getting used to it. Getting used to it.
Something you're going to have to get used to, and we'll talk about in the next segment. The NCAA has Charlie Baker's kind of told more about his plan, his proposal to create this new subdivision where, you know what, you want to pay athletes, pay them whatever you want. If you've got the resources, just go ahead and let's attack reality. So Pierre and I do what we do best: attack reality. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, Pierre Noujaim alongside. And Pierre, Charlie Baker sent a proposal out to the member institutions that we're like, at the NCAA is like, all right, we admit it. Like, this is antiquated. We've got to get rid of this old model. Here's what I propose. Make your own rules. Pay as much as you want. We can't stop it. Here you go. You want to talk about getting used to a new world. Like, that is going to be a very new world. Now, with this has come players from institutions suing over unionization, and you'll have Congress. Like, there's a lot that's going to come if they enact this, which I believe some form of this is coming. How fast it comes, I don't know, but it's finally out there. So in the brave new world of this, like, it is kind of refreshing to just admit what you are, but it is kind of scary to wonder, like, what are we going to be watching 3 or 4 years from now?
Yeah, and I was just having this conversation with somebody. Like, I don't know what college football is going to look like 5 years from now. Mm-hmm. In 10 years from now, God knows what it's going to look like. But what I would say is, if it's going to be a free for all like that, what is the obligation of, if the NCAA disbands as we know it in the next 5 years and just becomes a pile of nothing? How do you, in essence, regulate it to the point where, because let's be honest, teams like Minnesota and Coastal Carolina and Texas State, and nobody's going to be able to compete with the power teams. So if all of that talent is being bought at a price that you cannot compete with, then what happens to those mid-tier schools, and what happens in terms of their scheduling, who they're obligated to play, and is it fair to put a team up like, a I guess in a way we already do it, but you get paid off, with the non-conference portion of the schedule. But how can you expect some of these mid to lower tier teams in the Power Five to ever field a team and thus garner any type of interest in your fan base? Because if I'm a fan of South Carolina, for example, what faith would I have that this team is going to be able to raise enough money to get these players to compete with the likes of Georgia and Alabama, and Florida State? Why would I think that when I know that you don't have the money to do it? Yeah,
a part of it is they're going to say the universities have the means. I think where the the collision is going to be is in the revenue sharing part of it, where the universities will try to raise all this from the outside so they don't have to give any of the money that they get from other places to the players. Because if they can raise it from the outside, then they can maybe not categorize players as employees. Like, there's all these little things that they're trying not to do. But the only way to ensure, if you're South Carolina and you can stay competitive, is that the $80 million a year that you're getting from the television contract, the media contract, well, now a good chunk of that has to go to the players, as opposed to just the university and its and the athletic department. It has to funnel down to the players. So because of that that TV money is going to have to be shit. That's where you're going to get like unionization, employment, all those stuff. It's all coming, and revenue sharing has got to come, because otherwise, when do the customers of college football, that's us, when do we get tired of no, look, you guys are getting all this money from the TV. Like, why do you need my money when you can just take some of your money and give it to them? I shouldn't be paying the players. You should be paying the players. Like, that's where the big collision is going to be, and that I can play, we can do it. The four of us, me, you, Garrett, Jack, we could do an NIL deal with a player right now. And that's still something that they can do. And they're, if we have the means of the wherewithal and the product to produce, to endorse, we could do that. But, we don't have, we don't need to keep doing it. I saw, it's a pretty interesting idea where make a play, get paid kind of a thing, where you throw up the kid's Venmo on the screen, and if they make a big play, everybody can scan the Venmo and give them. Well, all right, that's kind of funny and all, but bottom line is, well, how much do fans go, wait a minute? I've already paid a bunch for this ticket. I've paid a bunch for this. I've paid a bunch for that. Why do I have to now pay for the players too? At least in pro sports, when I go to a Cowboys game and buy that ridiculously expensive ticket, I do know that they're not gonna, Jerry's not gonna throw up a QR code in the screen and say, hey, help me get more money for Dak, right? Hey, let's scan the QR code so that we can put more money in the kitty for Dak. That's not how it works. I know that the ticket I just gave you, that's the money that you have to pay Dak. Right. That's where the revenue sharing part's going to have to come into it.
Yeah, and there's going to have to be some kind of level of revenue sharing that needs to take place for some of those mid-tier schools like I was talking about. But and I want to bring up another point, and I know this is way above our pay scale and our thought process, but and I know I get how I'm going to sound here, but isn't there still a level? Is nobody thinking? Aren't these still academic institutions? Doesn't the money have to go toward funding what the students need because you only have a very small fraction of a percentage of students on campus that are D1 athletes. It's a small percentage. So that money, I'm sorry to be the one that says, well, what about the kids in school? Don't they need the desks and the tools to allow them to do whatever it is their profession is going to be after they graduate?
That's the other part of this, that absolutely the kids should be paid and absolutely should probably get part of the revenue, and it shouldn't have to come from the fans. But also, you need to understand that you are a college student too. You're getting this because you're a college student who has this special skill.
Right.
There's not many kids that are sitting in their math class and man, this kid can really, his long division is on point. Yeah. We gotta get this kid. We gotta get this kid paid. We don't want to lose him. We don't want to lose this kid to another engineering school. Are you nuts? What's going to happen? But most of those kids are not going to be pro athletes. That they're gonna make their money in college for athletics, and then after that is going to be something else. So you do need there is some of that the athletes need to realize too, and because if you just make them minor league athletes, that's what most of them are going to do.
Yeah, and now now you can't really call yourself an academic university anymore. Like now you're kind of turning into something completely different because and I understand the revenue that is made and the money that is generated through football and men's basketball. I totally get it. And that doesn't change. It's always been a thing and that doesn't change now. But at the same time too, Paul, this might come as a surprise to you, but I did not get an academic scholarship to go to San Jose State University.
I'm very surprised.
So it's like, well, I would like to try to keep up with the rest of, the 20-year-olds in the country who are trying to get a job. So I kind of need the resources. So I'm trying to think of it from all different perspectives of what goes into running and maintaining a high-level academic university in the United States.
Yep. So we got a $5 super chat, Pierre, from the Prodigal Heel. It says, when the business aspect starts to interfere with the entertainment aspect, these markets usually fail. Ask professional wrestling and Disney. Now, I think wrestling has buoyed itself lately, but they did have a rough patch.
Yes.
A very rough patch. And I'm not sure they're completely, totally out of it yet, but
Not yet.
Not yet. They seem to be like they can maybe see the light at the end of the tunnel.
A little bit too, and that's a little bit different because WWE was bought by the UFC guys, so they're going through a little bit of a transition.
Endeavor owns them now, so that's the whole.
So they're figuring that out, and COVID really killed them. COVID killed them. So I get it. I see it from that perspective. If he wants to talk professional wrestling, we can talk professional wrestling as much as you want.
Yeah, Pierre, I know. I'm familiar with your fandom of professional wrestling. No, but Disney is a good example in that.
Yes,
I know way more about how Disney works now than I ever really wanted to, and it's really stupid. It's, and it's weird to me that they with some of the movies, they're like, I don't know why people aren't going to see this. They're like, well, you made a movie in Spider-Man's world, but he's not there. And that's what people like.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, and look, I liked it because I grew up with it. It was better than the third one, but the fourth Indiana Jones movie, they're like, well, why did nobody go see that? Well, all the people who grew up with it are my age and our age. So it's a tougher sell to people I guess.
You're right.
And how old is he now? Oh, he's 80. Well, the best part of the movie was the beginning when they de-aged him. So that was the one that was I really enjoyed part of it. So yeah, you're at a point where, I don't know why this is. College football is about to be at that point. If they get too big and they start breaking off the things people like, they're like, hey, why is nobody watching Alabama versus Oregon? Well, Oregon and Alabama fans don't give a crap about each other. They don't care. So they want to see Alabama play LSU. And then that's where it's just getting weird,
It's to kind of to touch on that point too. All the talk earlier when we saw the breakup of the Pac-12 and there was talk of Stanford and Cal going to the ACC and stuff like that. In my mind, I was like, you want Stanford and Cal in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and you want them to fly 5 hours cross country? What? Why?
Yeah,
why does that make sense?
It doesn't, and that's where the ACC is doing it to try to keep afloat. And this has been a horrible.
I get it.
But look, this feeds into what we were talking about earlier. This is a horrible week for the ACC. It's a horrible week for the ACC. And then if the best thing you can say is well, next year NC State will play Cal, you're going to be okay.
Got him.
If you were at NC State or Cal and they're oh, who are we playing? They're oh, NC State. Well, that's kind of cool. I get they come in here once in a while, but now every 3 years we'll play them. You have to not like them anymore. They're your rival.
Next, USC is going to play Indiana, whether it's next year or the year. What?
Yeah.
Well, why?
Yeah.
Nobody cares about that. I mean, it's just
Look,
I know it's a vast new world, man. It's crazy.
Okay, you cover the Vikings, cover them very well. You're there quite often. You have a pulse on the fans. If the NFL changed its schedule and so the Vikings weren't going to play the Packers twice a year, but the Vikings were all of a sudden going to play the Chargers, how would the people that yell skull feel about that? They'd be like, and that's just 32 teams, right? Like they'd be like, well, I don't know. Like, but if the Chargers come in once every few years, like, oh, cool, Justin Herbert. But then next year you get to see Aaron Rodgers. Well, I mean, with the Jets, like you get to see different ones. That the variety is spice of life in that. But if you told them you're not going to play the Bears twice, you're not going to play the Packers twice, you're not going to play the Lions twice, you'd be like, well, I want to play them twice. That's the teams I don't like the most. That's the teams I want to see. Like again, you're gonna hit these things where, it would just be askew.
And that's because that's the problem with college too, because there's so many teams, and then like we just mentioned earlier in the show, the Big Ten is going away from divisions. So it's the fans would be like, oh. The Chargers, okay, I guess, fine. But I mean, we got to win anyway. But it doesn't have the same zest. It doesn't have the same pull. It doesn't have the same steeped in tradition feel to it.
You walk out of that stadium and like into your job in Minneapolis. If you meet a Chargers fan within 6 months of that game in Minneapolis. Like that would be like, it would be, you might as well go buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
So
that.
Yeah. And so
fans in Los Angeles.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I need no other way to prove this when you have some of these random non-divisional or cross-conference matchups when the Browns play the Panthers, who cares?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things. And so and the NFL gets away with that because it's only once in a while. College football is about to find out that I know that look, the Steelers have a huge national fan base, right?
Right.
But, when they play the Seahawks, people are like, oh, well, that'll be cool. But it's not like the night that they play the Bengals. It's different.
And one more thing I was gonna touch on. I didn't read the full story, so forgive me. But I know that Oregon State and Washington State have reached a deal to play. What is it? 6 games in the Mountain West or whatever.
Yeah, 6 games each in the Mountain West.
Just join the conference already. Like what is that? Like, what are you holding out hope that you just get an invitation to the ACC too? Like, I mean, just join the conference already.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's what that is. Fair, is because they can be the 2-team conference for 2 years. And if I'm Oregon State and Washington State and going, hey, I wonder how stable the ACC feels this morning when the team that spent all spring and summer talking about how this conference didn't give them enough money,
right?
Then didn't get in at the expense of an SEC team when they were undefeated. And not only, this wasn't 13-0 Wake Forest, who's never been there. This is 13-0 Florida State, who's lived there in the past. Yes. They've had dynasties. They've got 3 national championships. They played in a college football playoff, the first one. Like they've played in 8 other national championship games. They've been there, man. Like they've been in it, and then they're out. They're not even good enough for you. So if you're Jim Phillips waking up in the morning, you're going, well, how do I keep this thing together? And you're like, well, next hotel stays on us, Florida State, when you come to Charlotte. We'll upgrade you. You can the breakfast buffet, we'll make sure we have an omelet chef. We'll get, what do? You can't do anything because the money is all contingent on a company also. And this is something you and I need to look into and figure out. And I would like to do so ESPN owns the SEC network, correct? And they have all the SEC games. They also own all but the 3rd-tier rights of the ACC, which they have sold to the CW for 1 game a week.
Mm-hmm.
So why would they not, ESPN, want to push the ACC more? Doesn't it benefit them? I know that it's harder and it's not as big a names I can sell the SEC better than I can sell Wake Forest versus Duke in football. But even still, it's kind of a weird thing that they would we're made the deal. We're making money off you, but we don't like you that much.
I think it just goes back to what we said earlier and how I truly feel about the SEC. I just feel like it's a corrupt entity. I truly do. I feel it's corrupt. And I mean, that might be a harsh word. I mean, they do prove on a yearly basis that they have the majority of the best teams in all of college football. But at the same time, too, I'm also interested in fairness. And I don't believe the SEC operates and does business in good faith.
Yeah.
That is what was. I already knew that, but this just tipped it off. This was kind of just, the thing that the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Pierre, have a great weekend, buddy. We'll talk to you next week. Catch up on the Amazing Race. We didn't get to talk about it at all.
I will. Yes, listen, I will need to do that. Trust me. I'm
Team Rob and Corey. That's what I want.
Yep. Okay, I like them too, so I'm rooting for them as well.
Yeah.
So I'll catch up. I promise you we'll have something to talk about.
Yeah. Well, also, you can watch the challenge and we can talk about that too.
Can't wait for that.
Oh, man. There's nothing I get more excited for than the eliminations on the challenge.
Oh, it has been the most underappreciated television franchise of the last 20 years.
Oh, it's look.
100%.
Yeah. I want to meet the dude who comes up with, all right, what you have to do is take these chains and run them around this big tower, and then take this gigantic ball and throw it at the other guy.
I would love to be in the production meeting and just to hear the spitballing of ideas for that show. I would love it.
I told you I got a buddy. I think I can. Maybe one day I can make that happen.
Oh, that would be tremendous.
Yeah.
I would pick his brain for hours.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Pierre, have a good weekend. Everybody else, today, Smokey's out. We've got Owen Buchanan talking about A&M and the portal and Colin Klein and all the other things. Taylor McCargill join us to give his view on the postseason, plus Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. That's all coming up this afternoon. This is 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Wave,